right?
No sound from me either.
Okay, how about this now? All right, can you hear us now?
Thumbs up,
Yes, yeah, we need.
message, something.
Yeah, someone is going to say something. Okay, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Michael. Hi, Marcus. Can you guys hear us? If you can hear us, okay. Yes, I remember yesterday, Michael. Yes, it was. Yesterday was worse because we took a long time to realize that. But I think it should be okay now.
No,
Because
we had any sound.
I can hear fine now. No? Yes, better?
Better.
Works
Okay.
great. Okay, all right.
Awesome.
Okay, awesome. Thanks. So come on, you see a little bit more here.
Okay.
All right, so yes. All
Perfect.
right. Okay, great. All right. So I see Kevin, Manny, Marcus, Michael, lots of people. No? What do you mean no? Everyone says yes and you say no, Marcus. Doesn't work. Okay, all right, guys. If it's not working for you, maybe you can reload. Otavio might works. Okay, right. All right.
Hey.
Okay.
Okay.
And that concludes the program.
Yeah.
Thank you for being
He was
here.
just kidding. Don't kid with us, Marcos. We are seriously paying attention to what you guys say. All right, guys. So I'm sorry that we are having. That's how things go live, right? We are live. We are actually coming here. We're traveling all over Germany and Switzerland and Spain.
Quite a trip for you.
Quite a trip for us, right?
That's great.
And for him too. Otavio right there is he's been driving, and that's quite a trip for him. So anyway, we've been traveling all around because the reality is, you see a lot of people in events and giving talks and doing open source projects. A lot of times we forget that that they have a real life and they work in a real office and they have their real homes, right? Like everyone else. And so we're trying to bring a little bit of this. We're coming to each city to talk with those people that inspire us, right? So I'm here with my good friend Andres Almiray. That's until today he was just my event friend because I only met him in events, right? And with Eggshell. I can never say names, right?
Don't worry.
So Eggshell,
Eggshell.
right?
Yes.
And Eggshell, she's always, she's not a developer,
No,
right?
No, she
You're a
is.
developer.
I'm a developer.
Of course she is.
Yes.
You're a developer. I'm a bad guy, right? But the thing is, she's been to all Java events ever, right?
Yes.
You helping us. So that you see, that's the thing. You go see people in the events, and a lot of times you don't know exactly what they are, and we don't know exactly what they do. So that's why we're here, to get what these guys really do in their lives, and so you can also get your questions answered, and so please ask questions, and so we can make this really interactive. Okay.
Sure.
So Iksha, I'm going to start with you because I'm already mess up your name or mess up your what you do, right? So it can't be more embarrassing than this, right? Like live.
I don't know what to tell you, man.
Yes, I'm a really bad interviewer, right? that you're telling me, right?
No, that's perfect.
Okay, so Iksha,
Mhm.
so you've been traveling around in all kinds of events and everything, and one of the things that you do that's really, really cool is the Hacker Garden thing.
Yes.
Right? And the Hacker Garden is a place where you invite people to actually talk and meet each other and hack on projects.
Yes.
Why participate on a Hacker Garden is important for developers, but especially why it's important for you.
I mean, for me, it's really important because I get to know a lot of people, and mainly project leaders.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing because they are looking for people to participate in their open source projects. And sometimes just attendees or people that are using their software look at them very, very far away, like they're in another world.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an opportunity to get and sit down with them. So any question that you have about a specific topic, I mean, you have this opportunity, and he's there and he's willing to help, and he's willing to teach you, or he's willing to learn from you too. So it's amazing.
We got to see that they're real people, right? That's
Yes, and they are really open, and I always talk to them and they say, you know what, the community is really important for us because this is what makes an open source project even more interesting when you have people coming with new ideas, reporting, helping, and Hacker Garden is the materialization of all that. It's an it's a unique event where you can do it, and I love that. I Let me tell you why it all started.
Okay. Yes, I was gonna start. My next question
for me.
was why you guys started this, right? Because you guys started this together, right?
Yes, it was
Kind
fun.
of.
Yes.
So the thing is that the Hackathon was born here at Canoe,
At
in this
Canoe.
office here in
Okay.
Basel,
Yes.
Right.
6 years
Nice.
ago.
Cool.
But we were not the ones that started it. It was another member of the Canoe family. His name is Hamlet Darcy. And he wanted to have the same. So he was coming from Minnesota or Minneapolis. And in Minneapolis, they have these huge Java and Groovy user groups. I believe the Minnesota Groovy user group is the biggest Groovy user group in the world right now. It's hundreds of people. So he wanted to have the same feeling of a monthly meeting where people will just discuss, talk technology, and occasionally hack on some code. Basel is a moderate big city, I would say, not as big as Zurich or Geneva, so other Swiss cities. Despite this, it at the time didn't really have a working group or a Java user group even. So he said, well, I'm going to create one. And he decided to create Hackathon.
With this idea of meeting people to work on open source project, not hackathons, no, contribute back. The key was that at the end of the day, at the end of the session, we can show something, and that's something it's also good for the community.
Nice.
Exactly, because it's not just a matter of, yes, you're talking to people, you're learning new skills, you have pizza and beer and have a good time.
That's important.
But at the end of the session, what is very important about Hackathon is that you give something back to the community, right? So everything just happens naturally. And we joined Canoe a few months after he started this initiative, and we love it. Yeah. And since then, we've been attached to Hackathon, and that's how it began.
And then you took over with it, right? Because you know it's been there has been hackathons in every major Java conference for the last few years, right?
Yes.
You know, all the Java ones around the world. You know, that's at DevOps, that's
JavaLand,
JavaLand,
Java Zone. Every
everywhere,
time,
right?
yes, everywhere that even if we are not there, we try that the Hacker Garden happens. But I was telling you how I started. I was starting with Groovy. This was back. Wow,
a couple of years ago.
Yes,
few. Yeah, okay, right.
I was starting with Groovy. And then I was amazed by it. I went to a talk and I saw this new technology, and it opened my eyes. And then at this conference was Guillaume Laforge, who is the project leader of Groovy. Right. And we were sitting down, and then I met him during the lunch, and I was like, "Wow, you're like it was like a fangirl, like wow, like
yes.
You know the feeling.
Yes. Yes. Oh, you definitely know the feeling. Yes. That's there's several people that I've met that I wanted to do exactly that. Yeah, it's like you try to be a little bit more serious.
Yes, like this is my smile, but I'm inside I was like jumping. Okay, so I met him and I had a burning question about integration with Excel. Don't ask about that, but Excel. That was my burning question. And he was very open. And he said, no, he answered everything. He showed me. And then I was, wow. So they are persons, they are close, they want to help, they are open. And they are in open source because they like to share.
Right. And it's very interesting because you're talking about a very open person in open source. It's not really every open source project doesn't have like this kind of openness, but in the Java world, it's really common that the projects are very welcoming and very receptive of people, right? So do you see this also in the project that you're working on?
You mean, well, almost every open source project that we currently work on, well, that we work on just as regular developers, but also inside Canoe, because we do both of the things here at this company. We work with regular customers, but we also contribute to open source projects. And the ones that we have chosen to contribute to, for one or another reason, are just by nature themselves, they are very open. I would say half of them are somehow connected to the Groovy ecosystem that may have something to do. The Groovy community is very welcoming, very open. One thing that I like about the Groovy community is that they don't immediately tell you, oh, this is how you should do things. You come up with something that might look a little bit perhaps newish, then say, yeah, that's interesting, but why don't you try this way? Or yeah, just there's an ongoing conversation that allows you as a developer to grow even better and faster. Because it's not like what we used to do in the school back in the day was say, you do something that they just said, no, that's wrong, bad,
right?
And then try it again, right?
Yes.
No, that's definitely not the case in this particular community.
Yes, it's. I think it's really nice that we have when we can actually find a community, and my feeling is that on the Java community in general, especially because of the Java user groups, they're very welcoming. In general, the open source projects around Java are very welcome. Even OpenJDK, right? We actually have here in the room Otavio that he started learning Java by joining the OpenJDK mailing list, right? So I mean, and the reason why he stayed is because the community there was so receptive that I think it's a good way to build the community. The whole Java community has this, and I'll tell you what, this people on the chat are loving you, right? Because they say, they're laughing about you and they say you're crazy.
Hey, Groovy.
Yes, I'm always like that.
Yes, Groovy rocks. Yes. Okay. So, and remember, I'll take this time here to remember you that you should ask questions. The whole objective here that we be very interactive. You guys are talking a lot. So Kevin, Amush, Marcos, and one of the things that it's a very international community, right? We are here in Switzerland.
He's Colombian.
So you're Colombian. And you are?
Mexican.
100%. And I'm Brazilian. Otavio is Brazilian. And 100% what that means?
Wow.
That means?
Latin America, yes, because he's half and half.
So
I'm half Colombian, half Mexican. That's
you're okay. All right.
Yes, but I'm 100%.
Right. Okay. So how about you guys that are watching us? Where are you from? Where are you locating right now? Where are you watching us from? Let us know. Because it's crazy because we've been getting people from India, from the US, from Brazil, so Otavio Santana is from Bahia, but he's right here in Switzerland right now. Okay.
That's interesting. I mean, we are all from Latin America.
Yes.
Here,
yes.
Talking in
the other side of the Atlantic in Switzerland.
Yes, and we only meet in Switzerland, right? Yes.
Yes.
Yes. That's really funny because a lot of times we only meet people in the conferences, and sometimes you might say, oh, I'm Mexican, but we don't realize that you actually don't live in Mexico, for example, right? So okay, so Marcus is Bavarian, right? Let's see who else answers us and see. Nepal. Mani's from Nepal. Bangalore, India. So thanks, guys. Thanks for being here with us. Let me see who else shows up. But it's really nice that we can have this worldwide conversation. And I think that's the whole idea of this Code for Life initiative they're trying to do. Germany. So Kevin is, Kevin was in Dortmund. Thanks, Kevin. So we've been visiting user groups. So, the whole idea is to get people from all over the world. So now you ask your questions because those guys here really want to answer your question. So let me ask you, what is your preferred programming language then? Because we have at least two containers here, Groovy and Java, but what is your preferred?
Please say Java.
Or you can say on any other one, none of those if you prefer.
That's a tough question.
Okay. All right. So why you think we have someone, Michael says in Frankfurt, right? Michael, yes, Michael's in Frankfurt. Oh, okay. So Michael is the guy. I think that's Michael Hoff that we've met yesterday, right? Hopefully, I'm not sure. Anyway,
probably.
Yes. Okay. So. Come on, I gave you too much time already.
Yes, well, I work a lot with Java. I mean, that's my bread and butter. But yes.
Yes, we use a Spark.
You use Spark for Java testing? Yes.
Yeah, sorry.
And also Groovy, because for testing, I use Gab, I use Spock a lot. So it's both.
Both. Okay, no, both is
I
fine.
enjoy Groovy. I enjoy more writing in Groovy because it's more concise and it's more expressive. You know. I can talk about Groovy.
No, you can talk about Groovy. That's not a problem.
No.
So why do you think that being a concise language is actually important? You know, because that's actually one of the complaints and the criticism about Java, right? The Java is too verbose and too right. So why do you think that's important?
Well, the thing about the Java language, the Java syntax, is that yes, it's verbose, but it's actually can be said that it's a safe language to learn because there's a lot of tooling around the language, and it's easy or relatively easy to write a tool for this language because the syntax and the rules, everything is well understood. Whereas with a dynamic language, whether it's Groovy or JavaScript, Perl, PHP, there are so many dynamic languages, Ruby, of course, things get a little bit messier, scarier, fuzzy, because of the dynamic nature of the language itself. You may know, as if you know the particular intricacies of a library, that a method may or may not exist, or it follows a certain naming convention, so that methods or properties get realized automatically out of thin air. But that's fine for you because you know this. But the tool does not know the rules, so it cannot give you code completion or refactoring options. So people that are used to refactoring and code completion and many things coming from the Java world, when encountered that it's impossible or very hard to get it done for dynamic languages, they get into this crossroads whether should we jump into the dynamic nature of the language or should I stay on the safe side, which is what I know, the comfort zone.
But that's exactly why using it for testing, not only using it for testing, I don't advise just for testing, but that's what make testing with Groovy, Java, Spock, or all this direction so easy, because you don't want to spend a lot of time writing things. You should write tests, but you don't want to spend a lot of time doing it, or you want to create a lot of tests, meaningful tests.
Right.
And when you have a very expressive language that you can literally hack immediately, it's great.
Yes.
For those people that don't know, Spock is a testing DSL, if you will, for any Java-based language. It's written in Groovy, or it's half written in Groovy and Java. It runs on the JVM. It requires a Groovy DSL, so your code must be, the testing code must be written in Groovy. But the code that you're testing could be written in any language. So it could be Java, Scala, you name it, right? So the thing is that this testing DSL is so powerful that it bends the Groovy syntax so that what you write is looks very natural and is very concise. You can parameterize tests. You can do many things that are pretty much impossible with JUnit, and even with JUnit 5 or TestNG. So it makes writing tests much easier. And the tests,
and the reports are great. So you can go with your project manager and say, look, it's written like a story.
yeah. So definitely I would recommend people to have a look at Spock for testing. And as I said, your production code can remain Java. You don't have to change to Groovy, but you can use Groovy for testing.
Yeah, so let me tell you guys that we have a lot of, I'm kind of following the comments here. We have a lot of discussion going on parallel to our discussion here. So I see Marcos here, for example. I don't think he likes Groovy at all, right? And then he says that it's great that Java is verbal. It actually helps you stay clean, right? Java should enforce more rules, not less. And I think there is a camp of people that actually prefer the more static typing and the more the strict, especially when you're doing very, very large projects. There is an advantage that's with the compile checking everything, right?
True, but eventually, well, at least in our personal experience, you will reach a point where you need an extension point where it's impossible to do with the box of the Java syntax.
Right.
So the interesting thing about Groovy is that it's a language that it was born in the JVM to complement the Java language. So it's not a better Java. It's not a replacement for Java. It's a complement
Right.
to Java.
And I think there's different things that you can do with different languages, and it's nice that you have those options.
Yes, exactly.
Yes,
So the
exactly.
thing about Java and Groovy, the dynamic within the one or the other, is that you actually mix them together as much as you want or as much as you need. It's not
Right.
that you have to go very Java-ish in all ways or very Groovy-ish in the other. So it's up to you. It's actually to the team to figure out how much you put in one or the other.
Right.
Whereas with other JVM languages, which will remain unnamed,
Right.
it's either you use that language or you simply don't.
Right.
There's no middle ground.
Yes.
And some people like that also. That's fine.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
just that we personally have found the capabilities of being able to merge and to mix and match Java. I was about to say Juby.
Right,
Java.
Juby, right.
Yes, exactly. That's the point. Java is Groovy, Groovy is Java.
Right,
So the ability to mix and match the different syntaxes and the capabilities of each language, Java and Groovy, is make it easier. So maybe you begin your prototype. You want to be very fast, so you start with Groovy because Groovy is very fast for doing prototypes. And once your API starts to stabilize, and you want to have something that it's where you want to have something that is close to the abilities for refactoring or the things that we know are great for Java, then you start to migrate that API to Java. Your client code may remain Groovy, or your server code is some prototype, but it's up to you to decide.
Right. Yeah, there's some comments about this. So Kevin said that he agrees that testing Java production code with Groovy makes testing much easier and you test more, right? And Michael says that Groovy is so flexible. It can be very dynamic, but with compile time, metaprogramming, it's even more static than Java. And he loves it, right? So, I mean, it's...
Here, yes. So Java has a feature like this, but it's not as powerful as the Groovy metaprogramming.
Right.
For those that don't know Groovy metaprogramming, is the capability of a program or a class to extend its behavior both at compile time and runtime, which means it can create new methods or create new properties, rename, do many interesting things. Java has something like this, and it's called Project Lombok, and it's compile only. And Groovy has this behavior, and it's known as the AST transformation framework. So both languages have the ground or the foundation to give you compile time capabilities to extend the program beyond what you actually put on source code. But Groovy goes one level beyond that, allowing you to have the same capabilities of extending the program while it's running. So runtime metaprogramming.
Right.
There's another recommendation there, Lombok. Yes.
Okay.
Just to point out.
Yeah, have a look at Project Lombok. If you want to do compile time enhancements of your bytecode, just have a look at projectlombok.org and you won't be disappointed.
Yeah, that's Kevin says Lombok is very cool too, right? Okay, so I'm not gonna try to follow the discussion right there because it's people are defending and attacking Groovy there.
We are talking about
yes, but
There's one question about Kotlin.
yes, there's one question about have you tried Kotlin? Have you compared Kotlin and Groovy? Any suggestion when to use one over the other? Have you?
We were
any
talking with
experience
Svetlana on Ticino, and
Svetlana Isakova is a developer advocate at
And
JBrains, and she
she's
works
right.
on the Kotlin.
she's writing the book.
Yes.
It's almost finished, so
right,
I'm rooting for Svetlana.
In ASCII, by the way.
And asking,
That's another thing that we can talk about.
right, okay,
But anyway, we were talking about that, and we were talking that there are a lot of concepts that Kotlin has borrowed from many places.
From different languages.
And one of the language of choice who borrowed interesting concept has been Groovy. So it's not that different.
Yeah, you can look at Kotlin as a mixture in the terms of syntax and behavior between Groovy, Java, and Scala. So it's a statically compiled language, but the way that you write it is very close to Groovy in the terms of how easy and how small the syntax is. I definitely don't like too much Scala. I have my reservations for it. Kotlin looks interesting, but to be honest, I haven't really play around with the language yet.
It's she was telling me that it's really strong now on the Android community,
Yes.
that they have embraced it a lot. So she's super happy that she has the opportunity to go to Android conference now. So I think Kotlin is really important, and in that area, it's going to be even more important.
okay.
We don't develop for Android, but we have seen some examples. Yeah.
All right, that's pretty cool. So I hope we got all of this topics that people mentioned there. I missed some parts of it, but anyway, it looks like that every time we talk about different languages, there is like this how do I say, people like they pick favorites, right, for languages, and they kind of say, oh, you like the other language. Looks like differences are not well accepted in this regard, but actually everyone we talk to says that developers should learn more languages. And yes, the whole idea of polyglot developer, that actually polyglot developers, the more that you should use different languages in your project to actually get the right language on the right thing. But even if you don't use in your project, the fact that you learn several languages allow you to open up your mind to different ways of doing things, So why if learning multiple languages is so important, why we are always having this discussion about language?
Because
I'm sure you go through this all the time, right?
Yes, I suppose that.
Passionate people.
Yes,
You're talking
exactly.
always with passionate people, and I love that because they are always pointing the finer points of their language of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like saying, why would you get asked? Is it VI or Emacs? We know it's VI, right? If it's Eclipse of IntelliJ, there's the clear answer there, right?
Oh, come on, I'm NetBeans.
or that one too. See, so comparatively speaking, all these tools have pretty much the same base.
Right.
They have additional features. Some of them have it faster, better than the other one. But overall, when you look at it from very far away, they give you almost the same thing. So why do we have favorites? Maybe it's the color. Maybe it was the first tool that you learned.
Right.
Yes.
Or maybe it's the one that has the last feature before the other guys had it. Yeah, that's how it is, I suppose.
Right. I think it's like soccer teams, right? You kind of choose one and stick with it, I guess.
Yes.
All right. So Michael says one thing that I like to comment, because he says that Groovy and Java work very well together. And I think the one very interesting thing that we have in the Java VM, in the Java world in general, is that since the very, very beginning of the Java VM, lots and lots of languages were important to run on top of the VM. So we have a very easy way to actually mix and match different languages to different projects, and we have an easy way to learn new language. So I think developers in general should use this support from Java VM to actually be able to experiment with different things, because then you can do a little project or maybe one object, like you're saying, right? You can do one little thing in Groovy, and then that's going to be fast. You can prototype and everything, and it's going to run of everything else that you have, and then you can incrementally either move back or improve it. So I think the fact that everything can run on top of the VM helps a lot, that we can experiment with different languages.
That's why we are so into Java, because it provided not only a killer language, it provides the platform to that many other languages can leverage and give us an amazing ecosystem. I mean, every time that some from my university fellows, some of them went .NET, Microsoft,
.NET, yes.
And I'm like, wow, no, that's dark side. We have a complete and amazing universe on the Java world.
Right. Well, I'll get back to this .NET comment.
Yeah, but one thing that you mentioned here, so we have a huge amount of languages that run on top of the JVM. There are languages that are born inside the JVM, so born the metrics, like Ruby and Scala, Ceylon, and Kotlin, and those that have come from other places, such as Ruby and Python and Haskell and whatnot. Now, I think what you said is very important, that in particular case of Ruby, which the Java version is JRuby, the platform is so important, and it makes other languages run in a much better way. And this is very, very specific for the case in JRuby. JRuby is the fastest implementation of Ruby.
Right.
And the original Ruby, which is implemented in C, some members of the community don't like it because, oh, Java is ugly, and you know it, right?
Right.
And they specifically hate JRuby because it's faster than the original.
Right.
And it's all because of the power of the JVM platform.
Right, and the original wasn't written in Ruby to begin with, right? It was written in C. So anyway, it's like, it's a different language anyway, right? and everything's compiled to bytecode somehow. All right, yeah. So
why not improve a particular language instead of create a new one?
Yeah, so Manny's asking about, I think this whole discussion here, you create a new language like Ruby, for example, why not just improve in Java? And there's reasons why we have so many languages.
Yeah, so it could be the case that you're really interested to make Java better, right? The only way for you to make Java better is to participate through the JCP and OpenJDK. Now, there is a reason why there is bureaucracy around, because you don't want every crazy idea to eventually find their way into Java.
Right.
So you may be thinking, yes, I really want to contribute to Java, but I don't like the speed. So your problem is the speed on how features get into that particular language. So if you're concerned about that, then you say, I'm going to create a splinter group and have my own language that provides the feature I want at the speed that I want. Others may be thinking, I don't think that object-oriented programming is the way to go. I want to go full functional programming.
Right.
So I'm going to push that. And in order to do that, then I need my own language. Or it's not functional programming, it's something completely different. And the languages that you are looking at the moment do not give you the framework or the access to successfully and quickly prototype and push those features.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's there's so many interesting different ideas on how you should do programming, that it's nice that we have different languages that kind of try to get this one specific idea and build on top of that. And some of those advantages kind of filter out into more general used languages. But there's a lot of interest research on specific language. Actually, yesterday we were with Michael in Frankfurt, and he has all this visual language that's it's different, and it uses Java on the back, and you actually write lots of things in Java. But there's other things that you do they're specific for the visual world. So I think that language is a way to express a concept, and there's some ways are easier and some ways are harder. Like poetry and writing poetry or writing an article. Those are two completely different things, and sometimes you need different things to do those things.
Yes, of course. If you look at from afar, you use poetry and an article to communicate to somebody else. But the way that you convey the ideas is different. The way that you do things. So the interesting thing about so many different languages out there is that every different group can play around with different features and different ideas. And if some of those ideas emerge to the surface that this is the way to go, then it's very likely that the other languages will follow suit. And this is exactly what happened with JDK 8 and lambdas.
Right.
So every other language out there had lambdas or closures or functions and anonymous functions. Doesn't matter how you want to call it, they had it except Java. Eventually Java said, okay, now it's time to finally have something like that.
Right.
And now that we have lambdas, we also have the capabilities to have more things. We have parallel execution. We have, whether you like it or love it or not, optional. There's a really nice discussion going on about the naming of the methods. And Lambda expressions have opened the door to do additional things that are coming in JDK 9 and JDK 10. And that is because other languages were able to play with those features earlier and say, here, this is much better. Would you like to have it?
Right. Yeah.
And it works and it helps people. So that's also a good idea to have a very broad environment of languages. You can have cross-pollination between them later on. So for us developers, sometimes daunting to go and say, now I have to learn another language, another tool. But all of them have borrowed some ideas. So all of them try to solve almost the same problem in different approaches. So it's not like you are going to start from scratch. I mean,
well, but Scratch is another interesting language to start with. But let me just kind of switch gears completely, but not so much, because we're talking a lot about language, but there's another language that actually started its life as a language, but it's not so much as a language today anymore. JavaFX. There's lots of questions right there.
Oh.
If you can talk a little bit about JavaFX and your experience with JavaFX.
Yeah,
You know, we've been talking about JavaFX in this tour because I've been meeting lots of canoe people along the way, right?
we are all around the world. So the things that recently I mentioned on Twitter that I'm working on with JavaFX feels like a roller coaster ride.
Yeah, that's exactly the question right there.
Yeah, so if you like roller coaster rides, there's a lot of emotion and motion happening, and you go with the ups and then you go with the downs. And the thing about the JavaFX toolkit is that it allows you to create applications very fast. But when you really want to get into the gritty details, how do you write very compelling UIs for enterprise applications? And when the enterprise comes in, is you have to have formatted text fields and very well behaved tables and trees and table views, and these advanced components, if you will, are the current ones that are provided by default are not really that good. So that's the problem of the down of JavaFX. So it's very good that we have something that behaves like CSS. It's not the real final CSS tree, so be careful with that one. So that's another down. But it's great that you can stylize your application with CSS very quickly. So that's an up. Animation, some people think that is good, others simply don't use it. Then there's no requirements. You can add as many icons and funny things in your applications to have a very compelling experience. And when compared to the alternative, which will be Swing, in Swing you can still do it, but there is much more code that you have to write.
Right.
So in that regard, I say yes, JavaFX is fun, and this is very fast to do some things. But then you start to see on the other things that you may be missing if you are an experienced Swing developer, like table views and table models and tree models and many other stuff. So that's why I said it's like a roller coaster. You get a bit excited very quickly, and then suddenly it's a down.
Right.
And then you go up again.
But isn't this every technology? I mean, every technology has its. I mean, every new stuff comes with ups and downs, right? You know, it's kind of. I know it's a very generic statement right now.
Yeah, that is true. It's just that.
Okay, let me ask a different question, because I think it has ups and downs. But is JavaFX open source?
JavaFX is open source.
Yes. So is there like an interesting community working around it? Is this community being actually starting at least, or being built, or no?
Well, what I can say is there are a lot of people that go to conferences, the speakers are very excited about JavaFX. This is something that you can actually feel. Now, whether that gets translated into how fast features and bug fixes get added to the official JavaFX sources, that's a completely different matter.
Right. Okay. So right now there's not a lot of let's say of movement inside actually improving the technologies. That's right.
There is, but it's not as fast or as constant as it used to be.
Right. Okay.
Right. So the toolkit and the platform continues to evolve, but it's a different pace. It's a different speed.
Right. Okay. All right. So because I think a lot of times, when you have ups and downs, it's okay. I think every technology has its problems, but if you can actually improve the technology, or if there is a community improving the technology, you can see that eventually things are going to be better.
Yes.
Right? And so do you think that things eventually going to be better?
Yes.
Not given a time when it eventually is like eventually.
No, I really think I think it has a bright future, because there are people that are really passionate about it behind. So that's the first step. For me, that's the foundation for a thriving community.
Right.
You have really smart people, passionate people that are willing to work in open source, and then I think that's going to be really important.
What is also true is that in the past 2 or 3 years, we have had more projects coming from the community from JavaFX. So we have projects that deal with icons, or new widgets, or completely new behavior that is related to eventing systems that for one reason or another is impossible to bring from the core, because the core cannot think of all the possibilities that you want to do. That's precisely why there are extension points. And this is where the slack, if you will, that the community has taken over and says, okay, if the core cannot for some reason produce this piece of behavior, there we're going to do it. and they're actually pushing a lot of open source projects related to JavaFX, and this is great because now they feel like, I would say that the JavaFX team inside Oracle feels validated by the fact that when they decide to open source the whole thing, they're here. The community will help us in some way, right? And now the community is actually answering.
Yeah.
Okay. So Kevin asks us here, he started by saying he's not a desktop developer, so he may be wrong. But wouldn't it be easier to just implement an HTML5 engine and just, HTML5 rendering engine and implement the interface in HTML5? Or
No.
Well, what happened if you are connected to other devices? What happened? First, yes, if you have to read, you cannot leverage. That's one of the things I always think when they say you can replace all desktop application with a web application, and it was like real security sessions, peripherals, devices.
Well, if you have to draw a custom component in HTML5, so you have something new that doesn't exist in the standard widgets yet. So your option will be to use Canvas, which is just plain drawing, right? In JavaFX, you also have a Canvas, so it's exactly the same. So there's no win within one or the other. The advantage of running JavaFX, because you still have to use the Canvas API. That's what I'm saying.
No, I mean, yeah. But I mean, if you are talking about writing something in Java and then in HTML5 or JavaScript, and then, okay, maybe I buy you that you can do something similar, but the build tools? Are you kidding me?
Yes,
the stability
I know
of the build tools that Java has.
I'm with her on that.
No. So I don't. Yes, I don't.
Java has not the framework. Any framework that you use in Java won't die in 1 year.
No. So
you don't have to
not 1 year, 1 week.
In 1 week.
So I was aiming to be inclusive to the JavaScript developers.
Yes.
Not to say that the tools that they use they don't work compared to what we have. But yes. So again,
very dynamic.
if you look from afar, drawing on the HTML canvas and drawing on the JavaFX canvas is almost the same thing, right? We know if it's inside the JVM, it's better. Yes, we know it. Sorry, guys, JavaScript is not inside the JVM. It doesn't work.
No.
All right.
As a disclosure, I'm working in a HTML web components Polymer JavaScript project. So I work with JavaScript and I'm happy. Polymer, it's really nice. But
Kevin says that JavaScript build tools are hell. So I don't think he likes very much build
tools are hell. That is very polite to say.
Yeah. Very polite to say. All right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I just love that here. You guys bring the subjects. I'm just voicing aloud what you guys are saying, and they fight each other. It's wonderful, right? It's the best interview ever, right? I don't have to do anything. You're so amazing. Okay, so what else? Oh, come on, you have so many things to ask. So how about let me like kind of complete switch gears here, right?
Okay.
One of the things that we are always talking in this tour is about career. We started talking about the Hacker Garden, how we can improve careers. But what do you suggest, right, to people that are starting, or even seasoned developers, what they can do to do a step forward in their careers, right, to improve their careers? Because I think that software development is a creative process. We are in a very, very interesting industry that changes a lot. That changes a lot all the time. But a lot of times you see people that are in this industry, but they're stuck, right? Their careers don't advance. They don't get interesting projects. They kind of get stuck in these old technologies. What can we tell developers in general that they can do to improve their careers?
Let me tell you about another friend. He's Australian, and he was also very into the Ruby community. And he used to say, usually I don't have a lot of time, but then I wake up from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. And then that was the time he used to interact with the Ruby community. And he said, that's for me the time when I, instead of go and paint with the large brush, it's with the pencil. So that's where he was creative, he was expressive, he was doing something amazing. So for me, my first advice is, okay, you can create a new project, your pet store, write it in several languages, use several frameworks, try new things. But my personal suggestion is, instead of doing this, it's go to an open source project, go to a very large community. From personal experience, I will recommend Groovy. Another really good community, even though I'm not actively participating in that one, is JRuby, because we had chance to talk a lot with Charles, and Charles Nutter is really embracing. He is one of those people that really want you to come and learn and discuss. And for me, that's the right place to start learning about something, with people that it's very knowledgeable and passionate and open.
Yes,
That's pretty cool.
definitely get involved in an open source project will be my recommendation. And you can get involved in many different ways. The easiest one is you're using a particular project, you find a problem, submit a bug report. That's the easiest one that anybody can use. Just get interested that you find it. Yeah, no. But the first thing is you find an obstacle, and instead of just saying, I'll add my workaround and then continue, just let the other people know, by the way, I was able to encounter this problem. Here are the steps. And if you are able to fix it, then it will be great if you submit a patch. That is the best thing that you can do. And that's how it gets the ball rolling. Some people get so excited that their contribution was accepted that they might want to fix one of the open tickets, or they encounter another problem and then continue fixing it. And it's a little bit addictive, but in a very good way, because once you continue to go down this path, then you start to learn coding tricks from the other team members. You discover that they're probably living at the other side of the world, so they have a different way to solve and see problems. So you also gain that knowledge, and you can contribute your knowledge because you also solve problems in a different way. So it starts a discussion going back and forth. If this is the best way, the most performant, then you learn new tricks, you learn new tools, you eventually might discover a new language, and then you don't know exactly where you're going to end up. It's just the first step out of the incredible journey.
Another side effect is that you're building your CV. You're not writing it or building it. Now, if you go to an interview and you said, I do testing, and you said, well, you can visit my GitHub account, and they will see that you really do testing, or that you really do know what you're saying you do. And another thing that I have encountered during the Hacker Gardens is people are sometimes working for these big companies that fork one technology like 10 years ago. So when you go and, do you know this Git command? And they say, I have never, ever used Git because in my company, we don't use it.
Right.
And they said, well, then I'm stuck there because I don't know what's outside. So I really don't know how to change work because I know that my company is using Stack they feel like...
We have encountered customers that still use their own custom version of Struts.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And if you're in the
you say this like we haven't encountered, like it's one, right? Like, in Brazil, struts were so popular that we have a lot of people that just kind of improve with struts or changes struts a little bit, or even if they didn't change it, they're still, we're gonna use struts for the rest of our lives. But
yes.
But I think the fact that I think this is a reality for many people, that they are stuck in, not stuck, but they're doing projects that made decisions. Like, for example, you decided to use struts at some point in your project, right? And then I don't know, 10 years later, that project still works. Are you just going to change the whole thing just to change it for a new framework? So you just kind of keep that thing, right?
If you develop in JavaScript and HTML,
it doesn't happen, right?
It doesn't happen.
That's one of the things. Yeah, we were discussing this with Michael yesterday because he was saying that backwards compatibility is so important, because actually some projects that they have a long life, right? And it's not bad that you have those things, but the thing is, for your career, sometimes it's good that you can see other things also, right?
Yes. And you can, when we talk about Hacker Garden, we usually also point that if you have an open source project, you can get some IDEs license for free. You can have yes, that's important.
No,
It is.
IE
Like
licenses
t-shirts
of yes, t-shirts or profiling tools and all
Profiling
stuff.
tools.
Tools that your
And-
company might not want to pay at first, but once you get the experience working these tools, you may be in a better position to convince your manager
Yes.
to acquire the tools
You
for the company.
already know how to use them. They won't appear in your. You don't have to wait until. Guess what? We're going to use SaaS Labs now, and you're like, what? Now, if you have your open source project, maybe you're involved. They have a license open for open source project. So for you, it's like, oh, great! I know that tool.
Right. So okay. So now, when someone comes to you like this, and you know, they have never worked on an open source project, they they're using old technology, and then you come to them and say, okay, so you go and you join an open source project and you contribute to an open source project. Isn't this scary?
Yes.
So how-
because it's
how do you-
jumping into the
Right.
unknown.
So how do you get from it's scary to actually I want to do it, right? So
In the Hacker Garden, you don't know how many people have done their first commit or create their GitHub account.
Yeah,
at the Hacker Garden.
this happened 2 years ago. The first Hacker Garden in Africa.
Mhm.
It was at J Maghreb. Now it's known as DevOps Morocco. We announced it. We announced the Hacker Garden, and then some people showed up, and then we said, okay, so here are some of the ideas of the stuff that we want to work on. Does somebody know Gradle? Nothing.
No.
Does somebody know Git? Nothing. Kind of. Okay, so what ended up happening is that these people had not created a GitHub account.
right.
So we ended up showing, oh, this is how you do it, and this is how you commit, and this is how you, and then, so we ended up hacking for 4 hours, and they were very happy because they learned something. They actually learned a few things, but they also contributed to an open source project, and they saw, wow, this is easy. As a matter of
So
fact,
easy.
it's not so different from what I usually do on my work. It's just that you are talking to more people. You are caring about the code quality or the structure that the members of the team will look like, right?
Right.
So when they saw that it was relatively easy, they said, yes, let's continue to do this.
Okay.
For me, that's one of the most rewarding experiences in a Hacker Garden. See people doing their first push, or their first pull request. They go so happy. I'm so happy for them too.
And basically, you're saying that the Hacker Garden is not something that the guy goes there and stay for days, right? It is something that happens. The guy is there for an hour or a couple of hours, so it's like something like a very little time that the guy invests there, and he already has a result, right? So this is a way to show people that they actually can have a result, even though it doesn't invest. Because when you say, "Oh, go join an open source project," it looks like, okay, I'm going to take months to do this, right?
No,
the Hacker Garden shows that you can actually do
yes,
fast.
It's just a couple of hours.
yes, and that will be more than enough to have a great experience.
Okay. All right. So let me kind of get the questions here. So
4 questions.
Dexter says that, what is the Play framework? Maybe we mentioned Play framework at some point here?
No, we haven't, because it's a Scala-based framework.
Right. Yes.
So quickly, what I know about Play, because I never use it, but I have seen it. It's a web framework, as many other frameworks live in the JVM. And what I do know is that the first iteration was written in Java, then they switched to Scala, and they might switch back to Java. What's interesting about the Plane framework is that it tries to follow closely the capabilities of the Scala language itself.
Okay.
So and it's still friendly in some way to the JVM.
Yeah. So it still runs in JVM. That's a good point, Dexter. So I hope that's enough. So Kevin said, I've tried to do this with Spock when I found missing support for the Spring Boot 1.4. testing. So he probably was saying that he tried to either submit a bug report or submit a fix or something like this, because I'm not sure exactly when he asked that.
Yeah.
So we're probably talking about this.
Yeah.
And you know, I think this is this thing that Kevin said. You know, I've tried to do this one specific project is when people kind of change the mindset, right? You know, when you start being just a consumer of a project and you actually start to contribute back, even if it's just a small fix or a small adjustment. I'm sure it changed a lot the mindset of it, right?
Yes, there are again many ways that you can help an open source project, but the first one and the easiest one is that you find a problem, just let the people know, hey, there's a problem. If you can supply a list of steps to reproduce and give detailed information about your environment, believe me, there is plenty.
Helping.
The next step is if you can actually fix the code.
Mm-hmm.
or even submit a test that reproduces
Yes,
the
a
problem.
reliable test. That's a lot of goodness that you can give back to an open source project.
Or help with documentation. Sometimes we need a lot of help on documentation.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think this is so important, right? A lot of times you get, you know, you're gonna try to use an open source project, and then you start from zero, and you go reading the documentation, and things don't work exactly like it's in the documentation, so you have to do a little fix. If you could just go back and fix those things, you already would help the next one that comes along, right?
Yes, exactly.
Actually, Kevin, you said that wasn't a question. So, okay, so we answer it anyway. The whole idea is answer all your questions, guys. So
there is another question,
there is
and
here.
I will play devil's advocate because it's Gradle or Maven.
Okay, so let's keep on Kevin's comments then. So, do you prefer Gradle or Maven? Is this some, you know, is this like
the game of 20 questions? Yes, I do prefer Gradle.
You do prefer Gradle?
Yes, I use Maven a lot in the past.
Mm-hmm.
I started with Ant.
Right.
I still have the mental scars.
I still have running many very large Ant builds.
Yes, exactly. And then I switched to Maven 1, which not that many people are aware of. Not that I used to use Maven 1, but that even Maven 1 existed, which was kind of like a crazy hybrid within what Ant is and what Maven 2 is now. And then switched to Maven, and for a while it was good, but the same thing I would say for Eclipse. I was an Eclipse user for 6 years, and then I opened my eyes and used IntelliJ. That's exactly what happens now. I use Maven, I was very happy with it, discovered Gradle, opened my eyes, and now I use Gradle most of the time. I still use Maven while the project requires it, but if possible, I will migrate my build to Gradle.
Okay. How about you?
I'm more to Gradle. I'm biased, totally biased.
You're totally biased. Okay.
Totally biased.
You're not even going to discuss, right?
No.
All right. Okay, so on this particular crowd, Gradle wins.
No, we have a colleague here at Canoe that we say life was very unfair to everybody else because he jumped from Ant to Gradle immediately. Okay. Without suffering Maven.
Right.
So of course he sees Gradle and say, "Oh, this is a great tool." I say, "Yes, it's a great tool, but you don't know how great it is because you have never suffered how the other tool is as limiting as it could be."
Right. Well, maybe he's going to be in a better position to see the limitations, right?
Yeah.
All right. So okay. So Marcus comments that documentation excuse for bad code. Well, you know what? There's a lot of documentation that has nothing to do with code. Right, you know, you're gonna start a new project, for example. If you don't have a good documentation for actually how you do it, or you know, you're gonna install a new tool, for example. If you don't have a good documentation how to install that tool, you know, it's not. There's a lot of times that you have that you do need some good documentation.
Or the other thing is you start with a new technology, and then the Hello World version, it's broken, and you.
Yes. Right.
Really?
Here I would like to. Okay, now here's my opportunity because, as I said earlier, that I was coming back to this one.
Okay, good. Okay.
ASCII Doctor. If you haven't heard about the ASCII Doctor, the tool and the format, then let me tell you, this is the best way so far that we have right now to write a documentation that is friendly to us developer, because it actually
shouldn't be friendly to the users, not to the developers.
Well, it's friendly to everybody.
Right, good. Okay, that's what I wanted to say.
Yes, exactly. But personally, for developers, it feels like you're programming documentation.
Right.
Now, and then coming back to the goodness of the JVM platform, the ASCII Doctor project is implemented in Ruby, so outside of the JVM. but we're running inside the JVM with whether it's Gradle, Maven, of course, yay, Gradle, thanks to JRuby. And you can extend the capabilities of the ASCII-Doc syntax using any JVM language, again, thanks to JRuby. So this idea of open source and polyglot nirvana, different languages, comes true with the ASCII doctor community.
Okay, can I ask one question, like here, because I think this is something that people maybe not realize so much, but yeah, so you're saying that you can extend ASCII doctor in any JVM language,
yes,
because of JRuby, right?
Yes,
but it's written in Ruby. What if you use ASCII doctor in the normal Ruby VM? What happens with all the other extensions?
So the other way back, as far as I recall, there is no bridge going from the JVM into the Ruby world.
Right. So basically, even if you're doing a Ruby application or using Ruby tools, a lot of times it might be very interesting for you to actually use the Java side of it, because you have more extensions.
Yes.
Is that something
Yes.
fair to say?
Although there is one specific case for an ASCII doctor extension called the ASCII doctor diagram.
Mm-hmm.
This allows you to write ASCII doc diagrams, so ASCII art, embed them in your document.
Mm-hmm.
And it uses a library called Dita with double A. Now, this library is implemented in Java,
Mm-hmm.
is wrapped around in a Ruby gem so that you can run it in Ruby.
Okay.
And then now we have another extension that wraps that around to go back into the JVM.
All right. Okay. Okay. So when I wrap my brain around this, then we can go continue the discussion. Let's say, because we kind of run out of time here in a minute. Marcus says that would be a tutorial, not a documentation. So he's being very picky on the words here. I think documentation is a better word for everything. Anyway, there's lots of documentation discussion. Then someone asked about ASCII doctor. Okay. Now, coming back to the .NET question, I didn't forget about this one, right?
Okay.
Right. So you talk about .NET being like the dark side of the world and everything, and so today Microsoft has released a .NET, not today, but it has been a while. So released .NET as an open source project on GitHub with a friendly license. Does that actually change, because the whole discussion about Java versus .NET and proprietary versus open everything, does the fact that more projects are in open source, does it change the way we look at the project? Because once it turns open source, it has a better way to attract community, to get people. Do we change our feelings about those things when that happens? And not specific about this one. I'm just kind of getting one project, or the fact that it was backed by a company in the past, and because Java had this too, right? Java was backed by a company, then suddenly it's still backed by companies, but it still became open source. Does it change the fact that a project was proprietary and became open source? Does it make this project more important for all of us?
Yes, definitely. So there's a very good quote from a book that says, when it would be better for you to steal a car? When it's 3 in the morning when nobody's watching, or when it's right there in the middle of the day when everybody's walking by the street?
For me to steal a car?
Yes, if you ever wanted to do something like that. If you wanted to do something bad, would you do it in the evening when nobody's there, or would you do it in clear day? You would do it in the evening, no? So this is the comparative of closed source. Whereas open source, everybody is watching.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is looking at what's going on. And that's the great advantage, because if by some reason you made a mistake, everybody makes mistakes. Of course, I make a lot of mistakes. Then somebody else could say, hey, look at that. Well, don't you think it would be better to do things in this way or not?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the whole collaboration. So if a closed source project suddenly becomes open source, and there's still a company behind it pushing the agenda, this is the roadmap we want to take, that's still great. And now you got additional people from it doesn't matter from where in the world they are, they're looking at the source, and they probably tell you there is an error in the algorithm, or this is a better way to do things. So what about if we add new feature?
There are awesome examples. How to manage a project, how to use the building tools. I mean, it's always nice that you have a new open source project, and if it's a great code base and it's a very used piece of software, it's always good to have this transparency. But for me, you also need not only the openness of the code base, you also need the community,
Right.
and you also need people passionate about it, going outside and working with developers and sharing and starting this. So it's good that it's open source, more transparency, but we still like in the at the start of the race for an open source project to be successful. Now it needs community
Yes.
and things to work to spread.
That's very good.
Yeah,
Yes.
there definitely is no guarantee that when when a project becomes open source, it's going to continue thriving and be great. You have to grow the community, and there are many ways to do it.
Yeah, a lot of companies think that I've
Yes, push it and
yes, I was a director for twice, a director in the open source initiative. There's a lot of companies that come to us and say, you know, I don't want to develop this project anymore. I'm just going to put it in open source. You know, that's not how it works, right?
Yeah,
You know, there's a lot of effort to do these things. And you mentioned about making a mistake when everyone is watching. Isn't this really scary? Because, you know, for example, I'm the king of mistakes, right? You see how we started this webinar. So I do mistakes all the time. But for a lot of people, this is really scary, you know, making mistakes. So everyone's going to see my mistake in the code. I'm not going to do open source.
Yes, that's something that may scare some people. But
how do you overcome that? Actually, that's the point. How do you overcome that? How do you kind of get on the mindset that I will make mistakes and that is okay?
Well, I can only speak from my personal experience. The first time that I open source something, I was so excited that I have solved a problem that I had at work, and I think it's generic. The solution is generic enough for somebody else to consume it. Here it is. And I was perhaps lucky that the initial response was somehow positive. So I didn't get many negative comments. And then eventually somebody said, this is not so great. Performance is not so good in this one. Oh, by the way, you could do this instead of just doing, that's completely wrong, I'm not going to use it. So you have to take your chance anyway, because you may encounter somebody that is very open to share that there may be better ways to do things, or you may encounter somebody that is very toxic, and besides telling you this is not how you do it, then he says you are completely dumb for doing that.
In line of life.
Yeah, exactly. So you got a good person, a bad person, all in every corners of everything, online or offline. So yes, we are always afraid to make mistakes. We're still gonna make mistakes.
But we are going to do it. It's
So
not
what?
like if you don't think you will make a mistake, you won't do it. I mean, get real. You will.
You
For
still
sure,
will
I
make
can
the
guarantee.
mistakes.
I can write that I will make mistakes.
The problem will be is that you might not be aware of the mistake, but somebody else might be. Again, because of the different perspective on life and how they solve problems. And that's the important thing, that you may be able to grow and learn from your mistakes.
But it's also important that you discuss and you push your ideas, because in our case, we work very, very funny, because I usually program in negative logic.
Negated logic.
Yes, that
Okay.
drives Andres crazy, because sometimes.
No, I can see that you guys drive yourself crazy.
No,
Just
you
in this
should-
chat right here.
You should listen when we are working on the same project and we are discussing how something should be the architecture or something. We can spend hours. The last time we were at the cafeteria in our free time, let me tell you, and we had a very passionate
Do you do this kind of
discussion
things? You have free time?
about hash code.
Hash code. All right.
How to implement a hash code in a hierarchy of POJOs. But so she was using conditionals in a way, and I was thinking in conditionals in the other way.
Right.
So we had this very passionate discussion
In a bar.
in
In
the
a bar.
cafeteria. In the
In the
cafeteria.
cafeteria, right.
And the waitress was like, they are discussing like some relationship thing.
Yes,
and we were, no, how should
And it's actually software.
Yeah. So
So later on we said, okay, no, that's
okay. So I know we're a little bit out of time here, guys. But the thing is, we have two people here, right? So officially, the name of the tool, yes, Kevin already answers, ASCII Doc.
Yeah, ASCII Doctor. ASCII Doc is the syntax. ASCII Doctor is the project.
Okay, so let's say, so Kevin, the name of the documentation, so just so we put in context, right?
Yes, Kevin, the name of the documentation syntax is ASCII Doc.
Okay.
The name of the tooling behind ASCII Doc is called ASCII Doctor.
Okay, because he kind of answered himself. Right
And
there.
if you're writing books,
Yes.
you can write them Manning, accept that format. And
Many
Yeah.
book publishers accept the
Yes.
format now, so
Right.
it's pretty well known.
yes. So because people said it's only for documentation. No, it's also for large books.
Right. Okay, guys. So, if you have any questions, just send to us. We have two great people here, so we can extend a little bit. Actually, we should have interviewed them separately and have 2 hours of interview instead of 1. But since we're here, we're not going to do 2 hours because they're going to drive people crazy in the Sunday, right? But I want to. You just mentioned one thing here that you're a couple, and you work together, you travel together, you come to events together, you do software together, you discuss code together, right? I'm sure there's lots of other things that you do without being together. But
okay.
the thing is, do you think it's especially because you said in our free time,
Oh,
right? And I think that every time you're working on community and you're working on your career and you're evolving things, a lot of times you're doing outside of the work time, right? And I see many times that you have conflict, like, someone wants to do something, he wants to use his free time to improve his career or to participate in the community, and then his partner is interested in doing something else, right? So they kind of get a conflict, they can't take the time off, but you guys are able to do this together because you partner even on the community participation. How does that work? Is this a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Does it create conflicts, or it solves more things than
let me
creates
tell
problems?
you that he's more passionate about technology than I am. So sometimes I do that part of the wife that wants to go outside shopping instead of staying at home coding.
Okay, all right.
But
So someone has to do that, I guess,
yes.
right? Otherwise, you just gotta.
But what helps me during those times is that I see how happy he is
Mhm.
doing it, because that's the key. You get and it's amazing how many things he can do because he has a lot of experience, because he's very passionate about technology, about solving problems. So for me, it's like he's enjoying it. I mean, he's happy, he's smiling, even though he is rushing to the shower and saying, "Now I know how to solve it," and goes right back. And like, okay,
Man,
not a problem.
Let me give you
And I know it's going live, I know.
okay. Let me give you a hint, right? Marry that woman. You see, marry her, right?
No. And so that's, for me, it's part of.
So we have found other, of course, we know almost everybody that we know has a partner or a
Mhm.
spouse, and most of them are in different careers.
Mhm.
So they encounter this problem. How can you actually work on an open source project, giving time that is part of your family time, your
Right.
personal time? It's a dynamic that every couple has to solve in their own way. There's not actually one right solution to things.
Right.
In our case, we both know what software requires. We know the problems. So our dynamic is specific to us,
Yes.
Mhm.
I suppose.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yes. So I'm very lucky also that I have that my wife. Well, she doesn't do self development, but she works in the area, and we work very well together on the community side of things. Right. We don't do a lot of work together on our business side, but we do a lot of work together on the community side, and I think it's really nice. And one of the interesting things that when people come and talk about those things. Really, if you're passionate by something, let's say you're passionate by I don't know, soccer, for example, or some other or by
You will
movies,
find time.
right? You find time, and you have to and you have to arrange the way that your family either is part of the thing that you're passionate about, or the thing that you're passionate about doesn't exclude your family, doesn't preclude you to participate on other things, right? So I think there's always a negotiation there, no matter what happens, right?
And here's another proposition: that what if you're somebody, you're working on your daily job, and you say, "Oh yes, it would be great if I could do open source, but then I have to relinquish some of my personal and family time, so I'm not getting. And what if you could come up with a solution and convince your manager and everybody else in the team to still contribute to an open source as part of your daily work?
20%.
That's right.
So it could be 20%, 10%, something, because anyway, anywhere we look at, there's open source, whether it is the software that we're using for recording this session, or is the operating system, or anything else, there's always open source around. So we consume open source in the libraries, in the frameworks, in the languages. So it will be natural if when we encounter a problem, or that at least we could contribute back to that particular
And
thing.
many companies are realizing that. So they are starting with projects of participate, let the developers work in open source project, 20%, 10%, or even if your company is not that open, why don't you sit down and start pushing for that?
Yes.
Because when companies encounter a problem in an open source project, they have two choices. Well, they have two choices: switch to another project, whether it's open source or closed, fix the problem, but keep it in-house,
Fork it, yeah.
or fix the problem and then give it away back to the community.
There's a fourth option that a lot of people do. That's not fixing the problem and keep and live with
the
it,
problem.
right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely not an option.
Yes.
But anyway, so in 2 out of these 3 scenarios, you fix the problem.
Right.
So if it's already fixed, why don't give it back?
Right.
I mean, the manager says he knows that if you fork, now you have to take ownership of that piece of code, and now you have to eventually maintain it. So it's what happened with the struts.
Right. Yeah.
Nobody's
have
maintaining the
one
struts now. So
problem.
now you
No, you have two.
now have 2 problems. You have the original problem, and now you have to maintain that piece of code.
Right.
So why don't have what would be the word so you contribute back not just because you're obligated by the license, which is also very important, but also because it's the good thing to do, is the right thing to do, and it gives collective ownership back again into everybody.
Right. So Kevin asked exactly this question. He said 20% work time to contribute to open source would be awesome, but I don't know how to convince my boss to approve this. Right.
But the thing is that if you ever encounter a problem where you have to work around and then say, hey, here's the workaround, and then the next release, there is a new update for the library, and you have to redo it all over again, you're just wasting time. Right. Because you're not just wasting your time fixing the same thing over and over. Maybe somebody has fixed it also over and over, and nobody has communicated back the fix.
Right.
And the two other things, give him a list of all the open source libraries, tools, frameworks, or whatever you're using, and say, this is how we are getting from the open source community, and we are leveraging that. And also, we had another experience. We were working in a project, and there was a problem with a specific library. So we need the fix, but we needed it fast. We were lucky enough that one of our teammates was a contributor to that open source project. So our fix was there in less than 48 hours. So
right.
How that for me?
There are definitely many advantages, not just giving back to the community, but you can find or you can reach a developer at the other side that can give you a much better fix or a quicker fix, right? And eventually you might, the company will decide to hire that person or come around with another kind of asset that will make everybody happy. Of course, there's always the thing of, am I going to help our competitors or not? If you're consuming open source project, why do you care your competitors at all? Everybody's using the same thing.
Right. Yeah, I think that's open source. First of all, I think the open source makes a lot of sense for us developers, and sometimes it doesn't make sense for managers because managers are looking for on a different perspective. But if you actually talk on the perspective of the manager, and you come up with the reasons why that project is important for you. So you guys mentioned a few things, but for example, if you make a list of all the things that you are using, and then if there is a problem in any of those things that you're using, if you don't fix, who's going to fix, right? That's your, you're providing a service or giving some software to someone that uses one of that code. It's your responsibility to fix that. You can't tell your customer, oh, I'm sorry, I was using this open source library and it's broken. That's why the software doesn't work for you. You got to fix this. So it makes sense for a company, from a company perspective, to invest on that project to make it better. And then Manny says something along this line, because he thinks that contributing to an open source project, one thing that he always thinks is that if I can spend time on a project that I use, that's an awesome project, it's going to be even more awesome because I'm putting time on it. And I think this is the best thing about open source, that everyone can contribute a little bit, and the whole project gets better for everyone.
And for the next project, the next time you use that library or whatever you're using, it will be better.
Yeah, so Kevin says, I can see the advantage, right? That's very normal, Kevin, that developers can see the advantage immediately. Now, and then he says, the question is, the management sees this. And yes, a lot of times we that are working on open source, we need to phrase things in a way that our managers will understand, right? So in terms of cost, in terms of efforts, in terms of benefit for the end user, in terms of benefit for the company. So you have to find out how your contribution will actually help the bottom line of the company in those ways. And I'm sure that your manager will understand.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
If your stack is better, then you will develop your customer code easier, faster.
Right. Okay, guys. So let's see here. We are like 1 hour, almost an hour and a half. So
Wow.
yes,
I didn't feel that.
Time flies. Time flies, especially when you're making mistakes, right? So okay, so just so we finish here really quick, if you had one tip, so I start with you, I'm going to end with you.
Okay.
Right?
Perfect.
Okay, so if you had one tip.
Yeah, I have. No,
She has two.
I get time to think.
She has time to think.
Yes.
Right? So if you had to give one suggestion to someone that's watching us, someone that's going to watch us later, on one thing that he or she could do to improve his career, something that happened to you in the past, maybe, that like this one thing completely changed your life because you did that, what would that be?
The thing that started the ball rolling for me to contribute to open source was taking in a course on testing with TDD.
Okay, interesting.
So I would say always have a lookout for testing, not testing, for training opportunities, whether it's inside a conference, it's a workshop, it's an online seminar. There are many ways, but it's very likely that of the many things that you learn in this particular course, something has to do with open source.
Right.
And that for some reason resonated a lot with me. And I kid you not, it was 3 weeks after I took this course that my first contribution to open source was made.
Pretty cool. So you're always looking out opportunities to change your career, even even in a training that has nothing to do with open source. Suddenly you're not one of the biggest contributors to open source around here. Pretty cool.
Yep.
Nice. How about you? What was it like the one thing you did in your career that's like, whoa, this really changed my whole career because I did that?
Yes, and that will be attending. If you attend a conference, have the chance, really have the chance, give you the chance to network with project leaders, people that are actively working on whatever is your topic of choice.
Let me follow that up. If you ever go to a conference and you have a question, don't let that question go unanswered. Either ask it right away or at the end of the session, or approach the speaker and ask your question. Trust me, this is one of the best things that you can do.
Yes.
So yes, networking, for me, it's networking. Meet the people behind the technology.
Right. So you seems to be, since I've met you, you seem to be like, a person that's very easy to talk with other people. You're very outspoken, and I realize that sometimes I'm not sure how you are in your day-to-day life. And I know a lot of people are different in conference than they are. I'm very, very shy in conference. I'm not so much, but in my daily life I'm very shy. But a lot of times when you say, go networking, go meet people, go do these things, we're talking here with a group, that we call ourselves nerds, right?
Yes, I know.
For a reason, right? We don't like to go talk to people.
We
right?
interact
So,
with the computer because
yes,
It's
face
easier.
to face,
Right.
it's not that simple.
So since you have, you seem to have like a much
I
better guest than
know.
we have,
no,
right?
Let me tell
What do
you
you suggest
that
that we should do?
I always answer that because the
Mhm.
people think that I'm very open, and which it's sometimes the case.
Okay, all
But I
right.
always tell them I went into computers because I'm not so good with people. Soft skills are
Mhm.
not my forte.
Right.
But anyway, you have to push yourself. You have to jump into the water.
Mhm.
It's now or never.
All right. Okay, guys. So with this final message, it's now or never, and I think this is really, really true. Our careers are completely our responsibility. As as developers, we can't outsource the responsibility in our communities, in our careers. It's very normal that we say, oh, I went to a conference because my wife suggested that I should go, or I did this training because my boss put me to do this training. I learned this technology because my teacher told me that I had to learn. We outsource our career on the decision of someone else. And it's really, really important that of course, we can take all this advice from good people around us. That's always good. But it's really important that we take responsibility on improving our own careers, right? So I think with this, we got to jump into the water. We got to really go and do it. And I think that you guys are already doing this because you're here with us on a Sunday, trying to or maybe you're watching this later, but you're here with us. Thanks for all your questions. Thanks for being with us. We're still going to have more interviews along the week, every day at 2 p.m. The only day this week we're not going to have the interviews is going to be Monday. Tomorrow, we're not going to have an interview because tomorrow is
They have to rest.
No, because we're traveling that time,
Well,
right? So maybe
he has to rest. He has to drive.
yes, maybe we do from the car again like we did last time, right? But thank you all for watching. You want to say last goodbye?
Well, so keep in touch with Octavio, Bruno, Michelle, and myself online. If we see ourselves in conferences, just say hi, and the best of luck. And really try to get in touch with open source in one way or another. Any kind of contribution is great. It doesn't matter if it's just one line of code or it's a huge gun with the win credits. It's all good.
Right. Yes.
Give yourself the opportunity to learn something new. Be passionate, or let yourself feel that passion. That will make your spouses happy when they see you working.
Right. Okay. So keep coding, code for work, code for fun, code because you like it, but especially code for life. See you guys. All right.